really hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to be notified of more fantastic music content just like this. Welcome to the Need to Know Music Show here on Switchbox TV with me, Ronan McManus. And today I'm joined by a singer-guitarist who enjoyed success as the frontman of industrial rock band Godhead, starting in the mid-90s, and embarked on a solo career in country music in 2009. I think I counted 16 album releases across all projects in nearly 25 years of music. And I'm delighted to be joined by Jason Charles Miller. How are you?
Good, man. How are you, Ronan? Wow. And I've got more coming, so don't worry.
Yeah, I think I may have missed one or two even, and they're doing it. You seem to have done so much stuff in that time, such a varied amount of things, which we'll try to get through as much of that as we can. But it may take a 10-part series to do that justice. But so we'll start with the most recent. How's this last year been for you, the lockdown and things like that? I mean, how have you been during all this last year?
Well, I've been really thankful because although I had 2 European tours, a US tour, a bunch of festivals, of course, all cancel, I've been able to sort of pivot, and I live in Los Angeles, and luckily I've been working on new music for myself, but also right before the lockdown happened, I was actually hired by Iridium Studios to work on a ton of music for one of their new projects, a game. So I've been working on a ton of music for a new video game. Won't be out till like 2022, but that's kind of how video games go. It takes several years to get that going. And had some cool things release, like so last year I sang the theme song to the video game Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, and the next installment just came out and I sang the theme to that too. So it's been nice to have some things come out that I might have been out of town for, I might not have been able to give the attention to it. So what I decided early on was to really dig into my Twitch channel. So for example, like on Monday nights, I have a show called Miller's Music Mondays, which is kind of an interview / music show. I run it like a songwriter round. And so my guests will come on and then I'll go back and forth with them. And then on Tuesdays, I do a show on the CNE Games channel. And it's a songwriting show where we actually write a song with the viewers in chat. In 2 hours, we write a new song every week with viewer participation, and that's been like really fun and interesting and a different way of looking at things.
Fantastic. Well, we'll try and we'll get all the links to all this stuff so people can get involved, because it sounds like it's something that people are going to want to check out. That sounds really, really fun.
Yeah, I guess because I've sort of been in the online space for a while with the stuff that I did with Geek and Sundry, and hosted some online shows, that I think gave me sort of a jump start to want to do this, because it's a world that I've already lived in. So I just said, I'm just going to jump in full force while there's hardly any shows to do.
So yeah, I'm going to say you've obviously been occupying this space longer than everybody else. So you kind of you're a little bit ahead of the game with the rest of us. But I see you've been doing a lot of voice acting and things like that, and in game and animation and things like that. I mean, how do you get into all that kind of stuff? I mean, it seems like it's a real modern thing to get music onto games, and to get voice acting onto games.
Yeah, I started 17 years ago. I grew up in the woods of Virginia, very much a country boy, but I was sort of like a nerd in the woods. So I played Dungeons and Dragons and watched anime as a kid. And
that's your book title right there, Nerd in the Woods.
Nerd in the Woods. Yeah, that's great. I might take that. And so you know, for as much as I rode horses and shot my bow and arrow in the backyard, you know, I also was reading nerdy things, and, you know, I have like I don't know how many Tolkien books I have, you know, and I still have all of them, still read them. Voice acting was something that I was always interested in early on. When I moved to LA, Godhead actually, in between tours, we were able to, we got the job of writing the music for a commercial. Like, you never would have known it was us. It was actually for, I don't know if you have Pop-Tarts in England.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They're this sugary breakfast food. And anyway, we wrote a song for Pop-Tarts, and somebody needed to sing just a line. Oh yeah, that was the line. Oh yeah. But what that did is that actually got me into the Screen Actors Guild, because it was a national commercial and I had to join and everything. And so I said to myself, well, this is a golden opportunity for me to really learn more about voice acting. And so I took classes, I met people, and just got an agent, and just slowly started climbing the ladder of that. And now 17 years later, I've been in some amazing games and shows, and you know, so thankful that that's sort of my second job, because that has not stopped at all the whole lockdown. About 10 minutes from here, I have a recording studio, and I've been able to record remotely from there the entire time, because entertainment hasn't really, it's definitely slowed down on camera, but for games and animation, it really hasn't.
Well, that's amazing. Just from those two words. Oh yeah, you've got this whole career.
It launched a whole nother part of my life.
Fantastic. Well, you mentioned Virginia. I wanted to talk about your musical beginnings, growing up in Virginia, and kind of where you kind of started to get into music. What sort of stuff are you listening to then, and sort of how long before you started to play live? I mean, what were your beginnings like?
Well, it's funny. I realized my first vinyl records were Meet the Beatles, and then a John Denver album. I'm still trying to remember. I know what the album looks like, but I can't remember the title of it. But I think early on, like melody and harmony and like stacked harmonies were really something that sort of guided me on how I wanted to write. Even if I was writing heavier stuff or lighter stuff, just being around great musicians and being sort of immersed in the like live performance scene as young as I could. I participated in some community theater when I was in like a freshman in high school, which is like 13, 14 years old. The first time I performed in front of an audience, I was 6 years old. So
wow.
It was just something that I knew early on, that I always wanted to be a performer. I think the energy that you get from a crowd is like nothing you can ever compare to, or you can't describe it, you know? And so I'm always going to have that in my life and want to do that in my life.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years old, that's an early start, isn't it? Yeah. That's so, yeah, so it must be second nature to you by now, I suppose. It's just something you've always done.
Some of it is, I think. Yeah, I mean, I don't get nervous anymore. The only time I've gotten nervous lately was for the last year and the year before that. I got asked to sing the U.S. national anthem before a San Diego Padres game, which is Major League Baseball, and those stadiums hold 50,000 people, and all of a sudden, you are asked to sing a song that everyone knows all the words to. They know the melody, and they've all been told to shut up, stand up, and listen to this one guy sing.
No pressure, like.
No pressure at all. So I had, that's really the only time I get nervous anymore, is in a situation like that.
Yeah, I've been in that situation where I've done a few stadium things like that, and it is pretty. It's pretty nerve-wracking when you think there's all those people kind of just hanging on you, waiting for you to make a mistake. Then you start thinking, do I know the words to this?
Right, exactly.
Questioning yourself, yeah.
I mean, speaking of like playing large places, like one of my favorite memories of performing ever was at London Docklands Arena when Godhead was opening for Marilyn Manson. I think early 2001, which is like 9 million years ago. But I remember looking out and not being able to see the end of the people, right? The end of the crowd. Like they just sort of faded off into darkness. And even though we were the opening act, it was still, what an amazing feeling to have to perform in front of that many people.
It's actually,
and when you're the opening act, you really got to bring it. You got to give them the good.
Absolutely, they're not necessarily there for you. You got to really sort of show what you're made of. You've got to try and bring some of those people along with you in your next part of your journey, haven't you?
Right, trying to win them over one person at a time.
Yeah, well, it seems you did some. I mean, looking at the Godhead, you've played with Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, and you were signed to Marilyn Manson's label where you one point, and you seem to have played with a lot of big names. What was that time of your career like?
It was a whirlwind. I mean, there was a period where, so after we signed to Marilyn Manson's label, we all moved into the same house as bandmates, a little house in Springfield, Virginia, which is more in the suburbs. And I remember there was a time when we were on the road so much that we were not home there was 5 months where we didn't even come close to the Virginia, DC area. It was just literally playing every day or 1 or 2 days off a week maximum, and just jumping from tour to tour to tour, basically touring, nonstop. And when we were home for like a day. Luckily we had a friend to grab our mail for us. It was all packed up, piled up the time. But no, I mean, it was an intoxicating time, shall I say, because you felt like you were sort of on the prow of like this ship that just never stopped. I equate touring in a band that we're kind of like land pirates. We show up in our ship, we come to your town for one night, pillage and plunder, and then move on to the next. That's what it felt like back then.
So what was the differences then moving on to playing solo and go solo in 2009?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming the kind of with the Godhead, it's a band, and then the solo thing is kind of all on you. Right. What was that transition like?
Well, I started doing it when things were slowing down. And what sucks is that, and you probably know this, so much that happens behind the scenes, and not even with band members, but your team, right? Your label, your management, your agency, like all of that. When all of those gears are moving all together, it can be, that contributes so much to an act's success. Of course, you have to be you got to be a great performer. You have to have great songs. You have to present art that people want to consume, but you need that marketing team pushing you behind you. And I think what happened was after Manson's label closed, we found ourselves on every album that we put out after that was on a different label. So we had to get a new team each time, and we had to sort of start things back up from scratch with a lot of people, meeting new people, making new relationships once again with your product manager, or, who might be in charge of publicity or whatever. And when you have to sort of redo that each time, there's always things that fall through the cracks. So we felt like we were making the most artistic music that we were the most proud of, but yet each album was less commercially successful and was reaching less people. And so that became really demoralizing to all of us.
So using your ship analogy, it was losing momentum because it just didn't have the crew.
Right.
to really
Yeah.
keep it driving forward. I mean, you were keeping up your end, but I suppose it wasn't working as an entity.
Yeah. And of course, things now have changed even more. You know, what I mean, like things are constantly changing in the music business directly. But you know, what decisions you make in 2010 are totally different than the decisions you make in 2020. So, but at the time, we had really come from the sort of old school, and social media wasn't really didn't drive things the way they do now. And so I think
Yeah,
we just found ourselves in a case of, you know, we just started to feel like we were beating our heads against the wall. And it's not that we've ever really broken up, it's just we've all done other things. So there was no like major announcement that we're broken up. And you know, in 2014, we put out a remix album with some other songs that hadn't been released yet. So there's always a chance that we'll do something again when the door is not closed. It's just the logistics of it. And especially now, in the midst of the pandemic, we have no idea, you know, to make plans for anything right now is kind of a fool's errand, you know,
well, I
other than
think
what
if
we can
you
do online.
well, exactly, yeah. But I think what you're talking about, the you're losing momentum with Godhead. I think that also, if you look at that timeline, the whole business, the physical, was starting to not be a thing. People, labels started not being able to make money. So it wasn't necessarily a reflection on those labels. At that time, living through that sort of mid 2000s into the sort of mid teens, the kind of the sales, record sales, the bottom drops out of that completely, and then you almost entirely a live based industry. Just
Right.
when we hit
And
2020, it's completely dependent on live when there's now there's no gigs.
but
It's
I think
sort of so.
when we were in it, it was hard to see that at the time. Do you know what I mean?
Of
You just
course,
saw
of
it,
course.
you know, because you're always looking inward, so you think it's something that you're doing wrong or your team's doing wrong, and so the lack of morale is real no matter what.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think it's like, because now we can look back and see that was what was happening, and so many bands, you saw so many bands reforming and go back on the road because that was the only way to make any money, and now we can look back. But you're right to say that at the time it wasn't acutely. Um, we weren't aware that was what was happening, but you can look back now
Right.
and know that was what was happening. But but what was it like getting your first solo release? That is the Last to Go Home EP came out in 2009.
Yeah, it was
What
great.
did
You
that
know,
feel like? Was it
it
any
what
different to Godhead stuff in its feeling? Did it feel
well
more yours?
creatively, absolutely. You know, obviously, Godhead was such a machine in the sense that, like, you know, we had a lot of moving parts and a lot of people uh, to make it go. And you know, all of our electronics were on tracks, so our drummer would play to a click. And I said to myself, if I'm going to put something out on my own, I actually want it to be as simple as possible. I want any song to be able to sound um, just as good with just a voice and a guitar than if it's massively produced. So that's really what Last to Go Home is. There's not a lot of extra instruments on it. There's a few here and there, but there's not a lot of extra instruments. The idea behind that was, you know, I'm going to do something completely 180 from Godhead, but that I'm inspired to do. I never wanted. There were two things I never wanted to do. One was form a new band that sounded just like Godhead and be like, this is my brand new band. It sounds exactly like my old band. You
Yeah,
know, never wanted to do that. And I never wanted to, a few years later, reform Godhead with like new guys that sort of
no, right.
looked like the old guys or something. You know, because we've both seen that happen, and there's something about it that doesn't feel as authentic, right? So
Yeah,
as a solo artist, yes, everything's on me, but I do now have the luxury in a way of being able to write with whoever I want to. You know, we're not limited to just writing with the band members. I can bring on, if I want to bring on this amazing, you know, pedal steel player for this one song, I can, and doesn't necessarily have to be in the band. Or like I can get this guitar player for 2 songs and doesn't need to be in the live band. The live band is one group of people, and the recording, I mean, I think on my last solo album, In the Wasteland, I think I had 21 different players on that album.
Wow. And did that, but having that freedom, did it take you a while to get used to being able to have that freedom? Because obviously you'd been in Godhead for so long, it had been a set bunch of guys, and that.
Right.
Did it take you a while, or was it something you went, wow, I can do this, you know, now? Did it immediately hit you, or did it take a while to transition?
I think it hit me pretty quickly, because once I realized that, you know, it didn't have to be a 4-way vote, and, you know, that you didn't have to tell. It's so funny, and I'm sure a lot of guys that are in bands will tell you this. You can sometimes, one piece of information, right, that maybe you get from an outside source needs to be explained 4 different ways to every different band member in order for them to accept the information, and in order for them to not be upset about the information. It could be anything. And there's a freedom to not having to do that every time.
Yeah, I was in a 6-piece band, so it took me even longer.
Right. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's got nothing to do. It's just, there's so many personalities. It's got nothing to do with like some people being more difficult than others, or that. Like maybe I'm the difficult one. It doesn't matter. Like we all process information differently. And then once you have a relationship with someone who's in your band for a long time, you kind of know how to present it in a way that's favorable and that they're going to accept, rather than if it's just presented flatly, there'll be all sorts of arguments and discussions and things.
It's important that you're all on the same page at the end of the day, and that arriving at that point can be exhausting.
Right.
So I mean, that's so. I was going to ask you about your writing. So you've written with a bunch of people over the years. Are these people that you gone out to seek songwriters, or is it just something that's happened naturally, or what's been your process with that?
Kind of both. Like when I really started visiting Nashville a lot, and I was so fortunate that my publisher at the time had a sort of representative in Nashville who, some of the best songwriters in the world, the best pure songwriters in the world live in Nashville. And so I would say to him, hey, I'm coming to Nashville for 1 week. Let's fill my schedule up. So at 10:30 in the morning, I had an appointment with songwriter A, and at 2 p.m. I had an appointment with songwriter B. Repeat that for a week or 2 weeks. All of a sudden, you're going home with 20 new songs, and it's kind of amazing. The work ethic that professional songwriters, pure professional songwriters in Nashville take is pretty amazing. The way it's a creative art, but it's also a regimented job, so that most weeks, if you're a pro songwriter there, you're going to have 5 or 10 new songs a week. It's kind of staggering, but it makes people really, really good. And I learned so much about songwriting, and not being married to a certain part, and not editing yourself too much because you knew you had a song that sounded like that earlier. Just write the song. You write the song for the song's sake, right?
Yeah.
Not for anything else. You're just writing it for the song's sake. And the more you write, the more you realize you will have a collection for that next record. And it might not be all of these, but some of these will fit here and some of these will fit there. And it was definitely a huge eye-opening experience for me. And I think it made me a better songwriter.
And it's about the process, and learning to live in that moment. And I know there's a bunch of songwriting sort of workshops and stuff that happen in more of a group setting. Did you ever get involved in any of those, or did you always go one-on-one?
Sometimes it was 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5, which is really crazy. And then I know a lot of friends of mine go on songwriter retreats where like 10 songwriters will go somewhere for 3 days. I've never actually participated in any of those. I've been invited to a few, but like my schedule never really worked out. And that sounds
Yeah,
like
same as
fun
that.
too, where, you know, you're writing with 3 different people a day. And then by the time the trip's over, everyone's written with everyone else at least once.
Must really learn so much in that environment, and you know, I mean, that would be. I think it'd be again, it'd be an eye opener. Be
Yeah.
hard to not take away and be a better songwriter for it.
Well, and I find when I'm writing with someone else, they often push me and make me force myself to make decisions that I wouldn't writing alone. I still write alone, but when I'm forced by a fellow songwriter to make a decision, you know, there's less writer's block or less uncompleted songs because you're both pushing each other to finish it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably one of the things you maybe learn, techniques to get around writer's block as such. You know, maybe finding just ways to continue moving, progressing with the song.
Mm.
Do you cover this sort of stuff on your songwriting online shows that
Yeah,
you do?
yeah. Because what we do is and actually that time is better for viewers in the UK because it's on at 1 p.m. Pacific. So I think that's either 8 or 9 p.m.
Yeah,
your time.
9 o'clock, I think. Yeah.
And it's on the CNE Games channel. And the hook about it is, so CNE Games puts out a game called Idle Champions. This is exactly where Nerd in the Woods comes together because they approached me and they said, look, you know, we had all these events planned and all these conventions we were going to go to this year. They're obviously not happening. So we'd like to do a show with you. What would you like to do? And I said, about 4 years ago, there was a show on the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel, which at the time was like the most subscribed Twitch channel for several years. And it was called the How To Squad. And I was a guest on there. And we talked about songwriting, and then I wrote a song live with the 2 co-hosts and with people in the chat window. And it went really well. So I said, let's try that. And the hook will be that every week, we'll write a song about a different character in the game. And
Oh,
Idle
wow.
Champions licenses Dungeons and Dragons characters for their game. They're a partner with Dungeons and Dragons. So it's like, you know, from 8-year-old me is writing a song about, you know, Strahd von Zarovich the vampire with my co-host Dylan. And so Dylan's not a songwriter. He is now, because episode 12 is tomorrow. And who knows how many episodes we'll be into when this airs. But so Dylan is not a songwriter, but he's an expert in lore about the characters. So he tells me about the characters if I don't know who they are. And then everyone in the chat window will start participating as well. And in the meantime, we'll talk about what style of music are we going to write today for this character. You know, we talk about song structure. So even if you're just watching, people have told me that it's very interesting to watch. And what's nice is we sort of have a built-in audience because anytime any of their shows go live on Twitch, they send a message in the game, in the video game. So anyone who's playing the video game gets a message, hey, we're going live now with this show. And if you come watch the show, you'll get a code for a free treasure chest in the game. So we always have thousands of viewers. So it's great.
Well, that's crazy. But I have this theory that everyone's got something that they feel passionately enough about to write a song about or a poem about. I have this theory that everyone can do that, and this is proving that, you know, that if your thing is that you're passionate about this game and these characters, that there's enough stuff that you're feeling about this to actually. It's just knowing how to extract that. But it sounds like you've got a good technique going there.
So too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, this year you released, For What It's Worth, the Buffalo Springfield cover, and I'm assuming it wasn't planned before the sort of the 2020 unfolded.
No, it certainly wasn't.
Is it a reaction?
I did it in a couple weeks. People really reacted positively to it, and like it's been getting a nice bump on Spotify, which is nice. You know, I think the algorithm is in my favor for that one, or maybe just people are searching for the Buffalo Springfield one and they find mine. I don't know, but I wanted to do my own version of it. You know, some people have said that it is like a hybrid between like Godhead and the stuff that I'm doing now. So I think that's good because it reflects me well as an artist.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, you know, without getting too into the weeds, obviously, besides the pandemic, there's so much injustice going on in the world right now and in America that's coming to light. If anything, the lockdown has brought so many things to light and so many things that we need to face and talk about as a country and as a world, you
That's a
know.
planet. Yeah.
And you know, I think that it, that song so perfectly encapsulates what's going on right now, and also doesn't really like lay the gauntlet down. It just sort of tells people to look within and decide for themselves, you know, what they're hearing from the song. So I thought it was the perfect one to put out now, just to you know.
Well, I think it's. I think that, I mean, that just the history of that song itself. I mean, it's not written as an anti-war song, but it was taken as one. So there
Right.
was, so it's naturally built into it, that a message that kind of isn't too specific, and it kind of, but it's also very poignant at the same time, which is a real hard balance to strike. But it's so, yeah, I think it's a definitely a good choice. But I want to talk about your style of music, because, you know, saying you're a country artist, there's definitely the darker side of that, and there's definitely bluesy edges to it and rock edges to it, and I just wanted to ask you a bit about that. I mean, what were the influences on you? Do you think that kind of bring your sound together? Because I think it's definitely the sort of the darker end of country.
For sure. I think because I'll always have that dark side in me. I mean, obviously, like everything, all the Godhead releases I stand behind, that's 100% me. But my country, Southern rock, dark country, you know, dark Americana, whatever people want to call it, that's also 100% me. And so I think that you're probably never, unless I write, I take that back. Because when I do write with others, sometimes if the energy's happy, you might get a happy song, but I don't think I'm ever going to release it. I don't know how many happy songs you're ever going to get from me as an artist, you know? And I just live in that darker side because for me, it's cathartic, and I feel things very deeply. And when I perform something that's dark, it's cathartic for me. But what I've found is that people identify with it because everyone has bad days, right? Everyone has dark days where most of the time they're positive. And to be honest, I mean, sure, you probably could pick up on talking to me. I'm pretty positive most of the time. You know what I mean? When you're just sitting around talking with me. But when I start to perform, I just go to that dark side to sort of exercise that, you know, those demons out of me, which might be why I'm you know, pretty happy-go-lucky guy just hanging out or whatever. But I think that you know, it you know, you have to, what's weird about genres now is that, you know, there's so much gray area in every genre, that, you know, it could be considered rock or blues country or country, you know, that I just sort of, it's me, right? And
Yeah.
like whatever people want to call it, they can call it. When I have to click a box, sometimes I click rock, sometimes I click country for, you know, what category they think it needs to go in. But other than that, I just hope that people identify with it and can hear the different influences from, you know, my earliest days. You know, I love country traditionalists like Merle Haggard, was a huge influence on me. Obviously Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson's writing. I loved Southern rock growing up in Virginia, like Leonard Skinner and the more complicated stuff like the Allman Brothers Band and things of that nature. But then I loved Led Zeppelin and Ozzy, and and that's where things kind of all become a mishmash.
I was going to say, just you can sort of, I don't think it's a million miles away from it. There's still elements of Godhead in what you're doing, I think, and vice versa. You can see where it might go this way, and I think I just think you got great sound, and it really showcases your voice in the more stripped down stuff. So it's great to hear. But I wanted to ask you what your career highlight would be if you look back, and what's the thing? Is there a moment that you really think of that you're really proud of, really makes you proud, or a moment that was particularly poignant?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, like a life highlight for me, it doesn't come from any performance. It actually comes from when Godhead did the Ozfest in 2001. I actually became friends with the Osborne family, and in early 2002, I found myself at their house more than once. And one night, late at night, I mainly hung out with Jack and Kelly, but one night, Ozzy, when he asked me, like everyone had sort of dispersed, and I'm on Ozzy's couch, and it's just me and Ozzy, and it's still surreal to me that it ever happened. And the only way I can prove that it happened is I'm actually in episode 1 of the Osbournes. This didn't happen. This part was not on camera, but I can at least prove to you that I was at their house, because you see me in the background in a lot of scenes in a couple episodes of the Osbournes in season 1. But one of those nights, I was at their house, and it was right before his album Down to Earth was coming out. And he said to me, have you heard my new album? And, maybe just thinking that I heard an advance copy or something like that. And I said, well, no, it's not out yet. And he goes, well, let me play it for you. So he goes in the other room and he's rummaging around for something, because this is like in 2002 when CDs were still a thing. Might have even been late 2001. But anyway, or early 2001, actually. Anyway, okay, but I digress. All right, so he's rummaging around. He puts on the CD, and I'm thinking, okay, well, he's gonna play me highlights off of his album, or he's gonna play me like a favorite song or two. No, he hit play on the album, and not only did he play me the entire album from beginning to end, he sang along to every song, like full voice, sang along to his album. And it's just me and him on his couch, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, I don't know if there's any moment ever in my life or career that could match up to this moment that I'm experiencing right now. And I still don't know if there ever will be.
Wow, that's did have like an out of body experience. You sort of
kind of, yeah.
Like seeing yourself there, going, "This is crazy." What you doing?
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Well, that's definitely certainly tick that box.
yeah.
Fantastic.
I mean, I played the Carling and Leeds festivals where you look out and you don't see the end of the crowd, like saying London Docklands Arena, the Fila Dome in Milan in front of 12,000 people. Those are all like amazing experiences. But when I'm performing, I can barely enjoy it because I'm in the moment of performing the songs, right? So that's the out of body experience there, when you have a job to do and you got to hit this next note. And even if it's as muscle memory kick in as possible, you can enjoy those moments, but they fly by so fast that things like that are what is all worth it for me. Like sitting on Ozzy's couch, or, getting to co-produce a Billy Ray Cyrus album a couple years ago, doing things of that nature, getting to record Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple singing backing vocals, getting to record Joe Perry playing a guitar solo. Like those are all career highlights as well. But that one moment with Ozzy, I just don't think anything's ever going to top that, and that's okay, because that's a pretty awesome moment to have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. If you're gonna have one, make it a good one.
Right.
And so what's next for you? What's next coming up there? You've got
Yeah.
the go on.
Oh, okay. So I've got a couple things happening. So November 3rd, I'm putting out. I've got a bunch of releases planned. I'm gonna put out 2 EPs. The first one comes out November 13th. The next one will come out in March, and then I'm gonna put out a full-length album of other songs from those 2 EPs in July. So I wrote and recorded so many completed songs for my In the Wasteland album that either didn't fit thematically, or maybe the A&R guy at the time who worked for the label didn't like it or something. Those are great songs that I want to put out and I want the world to hear. So I'm putting out 2 EPs. It's going to be called From the Wreckage Part 1 and From the Wreckage Part 2. And they'll have 6 songs each. So that will be a full, once both of those come out, that'll be a full album's worth of music. And then in July, I have another album that I already started right before the lockdown hit. And so you should be getting probably within the next less than 12 months, you're going to get 22 to 24 new songs from me.
Wow.
So get ready.
That's pretty good. We always ask for a recommendation on the show. So we always ask for a recommendation of something you've been listening to, or it can be an influence, a big influence on your career. It can be something recent. Whichever way you want to go with it is cool. What would be your recommendation for people?
A couple things. One, my friend Ashley McBride has a new album out called Never Will, and Ashley's a good friend of mine, and a bunch of my friends, including Randall Clay, who I wrote 100 Pound Hammer with, and Uncountry, who since unfortunately passed away. He's got 4 songs on that album. And if you want to hear just greatly crafted songs, listen to both of her albums, her 2 most recent albums. Another one, if people don't know the band, people don't know the band Blackberry Smoke by now, they definitely need to check them out. They're one of my favorite bands that's currently doing stuff, and they're always doing stuff. And I was fortunate enough to have Charlie actually sing on a song with me on my In the Wasteland album, Old Scarecrow. So those are my recommendations. I've been jamming on. Hold on, let me just bring up what I've been jamming on here. All right, this is all the musical stuff. You know what? I'm blanking on the brand new stuff, but hopefully maybe you can edit that part out. Well, what I said is totally. I guess. Well, Ashley's album is brand new, so.
Fantastic. No, I mean, I know Blackberry Smoke. I can definitely second that. Fantastic band. So people should definitely check them out. Well, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll put all the links to all the socials where people can find you on Twitch and any other sort of just send us over all any links you want us to put in there where people can find you and follow what you're doing. There's so many different strings to your bow that it feels like there's plenty of things for people to get involved in. So, but thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Good luck with everything, and we look forward to all that new music coming out over the next year or so.
Well, thanks for reaching out, and hopefully, basically I've had 3 tours in a row where I was supposed to be in the UK. The pandemic canceled 2 of them. There was one last year where some technical thing canceled it. So hopefully I will see you in person next year. Fingers crossed.
Well, would you come into the studio and do a live session for us? It'd be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I love doing
Why
that
not?
sometimes more than like a big concert. So
Fantastic.
gladly.
Well, hold you to that.
All right.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks a lot, mate.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Take care now. Bye-bye.